welcome J.P. Walsh, our pro-life chair. J.P., how you doing this morning?
Doing great, Danny, and thank you and the entire team with the National Board for helping us get this convention off to a good start in a virtual manner. This is brand new for us.
All right, it's all yours.
All right, well, once again, thank you, brothers, for joining me today and taking time out of your Saturday mornings in order to join us a week early. Um, as you know, I'm J.P. Walsh, the National Pro-Life Chairman. And I hope you've all gotten a chance to read my report. Um, in a nutshell, I'd like to go over some of those areas and talk about some of the activities of the committee, and then hopefully we can open it up to questions and answers and some discussion about where we go from here as a committee and as an organization. So first off, it's been an exciting 4 years. Actually, just this morning, I was able to celebrate my son's 4th birthday today, which was very interesting because 4 years ago we were in Atlantic City, and I came home, and the next morning there I am, and within 36 hours I was a father for the first time. So to only get a call a few weeks later from President McKay asking me if I wanted to be the pro-life chairman, if I would take that on for the order, I guess you could say that it was, you know, just a great convergence of both personal views that I held as well as now family obligation. So it's been a great 4 years. It's really taught me a lot. I've learned a lot from you. I hope that I've been able to impart some lessons as well. So first off, let's begin with what the mission of the committee is, and that is for the chairman to support the local, state, and national pro-life efforts. I think most of us view that, at least in the past, we view that almost solely as helping put on, plan, and participate in the National March for Life in January in Washington, D.C. And let me start with the march because it's very interesting. That's actually a partnership between the National Committee and the DC State Board. I am the immediate past president of the DC Board, so it was sort of interesting that I was wearing both hats, so to speak, in planning that event. It's now made up of 4 different parts, and you have the National March, of course. That is the national event. You have the Pro-Life Breakfast, which is the traditional DC State Board event. And over the past few years, we've added a Thursday night get-together that usually the brothers in DC, Maryland, Virginia help host, as well as adding the Pro-Life Mass, which we've added the last 5 years. And I think that we can say that that's been a huge success and has really tied everything together. Beforehand, we had brothers who I know some of you who come down from New York, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, Massachusetts, you guys are coming from such a long distance and trying to do it the day of that you're lucky if you get down in time just to participate in the march. So the effort that everyone has made to try to get to the breakfast, but especially the mass, has been just tremendous. And I thank you all for those efforts and for joining us. As you've read my columns over the last few years, you'll notice that we've had increasingly large participation. That has been a true success of the committee. We used to have only 30, 35 members that would show up to the breakfast, and our contingent that marched at least under the AOH banner wasn't much larger when we got to the actual march later on in the day. Now we're pushing 70, 75 participants at just the breakfast. By the time we get our buses, usually from Nassau, Long Island, Westchester, we're pushing a contingent that's close to 150 Hibernians, men and ladies, and I thank you all for that. It looks good on me, but really it's thanks to your efforts and to your state presidents, your state chairman and local chairman. So that's been the view of the committee for a number of years, and one of the things that I had pressed President McKay on is I wanted to sort of open that up as your chairman. You've heard me say multiple times that I felt the number one thing that we should do as a committee is to combat this view that Catholics, but really pro-lifers in general, only care about abortion. We seem to only care about the baby right up until it's born, and then, well, good luck. And that's not what our faith teaches us. That's certainly not what we as Catholics profess and practice for the most part. But there's certainly always room for improvement. And so I wanted to make sure that as an organization, the Hibernians could not be accused of being hypocritical when it came to what issues of life they support. And I was very lucky to receive the full support of President McKay and the board, and the enthusiastic response from all of you and from your states has made it so that the Hibernians can't be accused of being on two sides of the same issue. We have brothers who came out. Maryland is a great example. Not only did they fight abortion this past year, but they also defeated an assisted suicide bill when we think about end of life issues and the dignity to die, or sorry, death with dignity. And that was a political fight that everyone thought that 2019 for sure would be the year that they finally passed this bill through the Maryland legislature. No one was questioning it. They were already celebrating. And wouldn't you know, at the last minute, thanks to phone calls, letters, rallies, they were able to sway the vote of one senator. And that's all it took, brothers, is one senator that we reached out to. And he said, I have a mother in hospice. I take a look, and I think his quote was, he cherishes every single day that he gets to spend with her. It's another day to learn from her. And sometimes the lesson that you learn is simply learning how to die with dignity and how to put your affairs in order and be at peace. And I think that was an incredibly strong message. So I thank the brothers from Annapolis and the Maryland State Board who led that fight, joined by brothers in some of the DC divisions, and just following things that we take for granted, picking up the phone and making a phone call, showing up for a rally, writing letters and emails. And it was all of those things that eventually pushed us over the line to a success in Maryland this past year. The other thing I wanted to do as chairman is highlight how the pro-life committee can and should interact with the other national committees of our order. And to that, sorry, I'm not sure if my screen is showing or not. To that goal, one of the things I tried to do was work very closely with my fellow chairman, especially Dan Dennehy on immigration, Martin Galvin, FFAI, Vic Vogel on the Hibernian Hunger Project. All of these, Tom Byrne on the Hunger Project. All of these are chairmen that have committees that have a pro-life message, or at the very least, that they should be seen as pro-life issues. Whether you're advocating for a quality of life for a family who's recently come to this country, whether you're talking about just protecting folks, our older generations that are in nursing homes, hospice, all the way to, of course, fighting against the evil of abortion. All of these are life issues. And in order to be fully in line with our faith, with teachings of our church and faith, we need to find the pro-life plank in just about every issue and highlight it and celebrate that. So that's one of the things that I think we've done a great job on the local level. Folks, I often have chairmen and interested brothers reach out to me, and their main question is, well, how can I get my fellow brothers in my division or my board more involved on the pro-life issue? The march is only in January, JP, and that's true. But there are multiple things that you can do throughout the year. One of the things is just keep give a monthly update to your brothers about pro-life legislation in your area, and that's a major thing. I know we all get the news reports about what's going on in DC, but most of the pro-life legislation that takes place in this country happens on the local and the state level, and that's really where a lot of these decisions are made. Um, so when you take a look at what you can do, keeping them informed of their local issues is just a huge part of getting them engaged. Second, you need to take that next step to action, whether it be advocating visits to your local legislators, whether it be a visit to the state capitol. I know that brother O'Brien out of Nassau County has, I believe, a trip that he helps plan to Albany every year for brothers to go up to the New York Capitol and talk to their legislators about life issues and other concerns that are important to Hibernians, and that's critically important. It's great coming to DC, brothers, but I have to be honest. If you don't come with a real set game plan and have it practiced and polished, you don't have a lot of time in DC. However, each member of Congress usually has a local office that you can visit while they're taking their what they call their district work week. And not only are they a lot more available, but you'll find the staff is willing to give you a lot more time to discuss your issues of importance, because that's why the district staff is there for these members of Congress and even your state legislators. They're there to hear and compile the concerns and complaints of local constituents. So I really recommend that the chairman get to know these individuals and make use of them from time to time. And last is putting on events or educational opportunities for our membership that has a pro-life bent. One of the best things I heard was we had a local committee that was like, I don't know where our brothers fully stand on life issues. I think we all say that we're pro-life, but we could do a little bit more. But some brothers don't want to go, outside of a clinic and pray. It's too confrontational. They don't have the time to go for a march all the time. It's just hard to get everyone together. And instead, what this division did is they threw a diaper drive. And I know that many of us do that through our local parishes. Some of them call it the bottle drive, where you fill it up with some change or you collect money and donate it to a local crisis center. But all of these are pro-life activities that are vitally important. They get members involved, and it just creates that personal touch that I think makes the issue, dare I say, well, as I said, you can touch the issue. It no longer seems like a large evil of the world that your one person is not going to be able to fight. Suddenly, it's a lot more manageable. And I really recommend that brothers on local divisions, county boards, even state boards have the opportunity to throw these fundraisers, these drives, and it makes a huge difference. I was lucky enough to attend the Maryland State Board Joint Convention in September of last year, and the ladies went ahead and did a diaper drive that was wildly successful. Not only did they have diapers, they had infant clothing, blankets, and a lot of these necessary items that for a new or expectant mother is probably not their top priority. And here they were putting it together and being able to donate it to a local shelter. I heard of another, I think it was in Kentucky, who did a drive for formula. And they had a local Costco out there, and a bunch of them went out, collected money or collected different types of formula, and were able to donate that to a local food shelter. Especially in these trying times where we have a lot of people out of work. I can tell you, brothers, that a lot of the shelters near me are asking for small tubs of baby formula because it's an actually expensive item that a lot of these families can't purchase elsewhere. So being able to donate that, I know my parish has done a number of food drives, and for my, out of my personal obligation to help our fellow brothers and sisters in Christ, I always want to make sure that I buy a tub of baby formula and include that in the brown bag that I give in. It's just a great way to make sure that you're thinking of the entire family. And if one family can't use it, you know that another one will be there soon. Um, so those are some of the things I've heard of different states and local divisions doing. Um, that really, for me, brings up the question of where do we go next? And I think that's a question that I've pondered a little bit. You know, I think happily, if you've read my report, I think there have been a lot of successes, but I now sort of look back and say, well, what could I have done better? Um, where could I have had a better impact? And one of the things that I found out is because we now have, because we are seen as an organization that is trusted on the life issue, that we are pro-life from womb to tomb, um, folks are willing to hear us out a little bit more. And in fact, our pro-life stance, it can now be used as a bit of a recruiting tool. So within the report, you heard me mention a plan that I originally had, and thank you, COVID-19, for unfortunately taking the wind out of the sail, to use our pro-life stance to celebrate our fathers throughout the Hibernians, as well as mothers in the LAOH, and use this as a recruiting tool. So what I wanted to do was create prayer cards, a St. Joseph prayer card and a Virgin Mother prayer card, to be given out by a local division at on Father's Day and Mother's Day at their local parish. And you know, it's quite simple. You just find a prayer for the protection of expectant mothers and mothers for one, for fathers for the other, and at the bottom you just have your, you know, the AOH crest and maybe a little information about when you're meeting, and have a few brothers hand this out after the end of Mass. It's a great little gift. It's a nod to your parish community, but at the same time, it gets your message out, and hopefully it can be used as both a pro-life tool and a recruiting tool. So that was something that I was hoping to get off the ground. Unfortunately, I think I mentioned it to Danny once, and then I couldn't find anyone who would ship anything to me anymore, never mind masses, since we weren't doing those across the country. Um, so it's something that I would propose to the next chairman and the next committee. But once again, any ideas out there, it's just about momentum. It's making sure that we don't fall back. It's making sure that we don't think that the only activity of the pro-life committee is simply every January we converge in Washington, D.C. for the National Right to Life March.
Thank you, JP. We have about 10 minutes that we'd like to take some questions.
Absolutely.
Again, I want to thank Chris Cook and Tim Noonan. They are the brains behind this operation. I'm just like the Wizard of Oz, I guess, out front, making things look good, are those two brothers. I also want to let everyone know Judge McKay is on the call. As he said last night, he is traveling to Youngstown. I think he's really excited to get here, and he'll get in here Monday night for an event him and I have Tuesday morning. So he's in his car listening. If he decides he's in a place he wants to talk, we'll obviously get him on the line. That being said, gentlemen, let's go to questions. Jim Green raised his hand. Jim, go ahead with your question.
JP, something that is, really controversial, and I don't even know if we have time to address, is, party politics and their stances on the life issues. There's amongst us registered Democrats, registered Republicans, that sometimes are really stuck with how to vote because the life issue is so important to us. What is your recommendation on how we should evaluate that?
Sure. Well, as some of you know, I work in politics, and that does certainly color some of my answers. So just keep that in mind as I answer the question. Jim, I'm glad you asked that, because I actually had a great email from Brother Larry Squires, your Pennsylvania Respect Life chairman, this week, and he asked me basically the same question. And here's what I'll say, brothers. I don't think there are very few, especially on the national level, members of Congress or candidates that fully align with our the views of our faith and our pro-life platform. And so it makes it incredibly hard. I'm not going to lie to you. I can't give you a perfect answer. What I will say is, at the end of the day, it's an individual decision that is best answered by who fits the most buckets, who fills the most buckets for your scorecard. When it comes to the Democratic platform, and I know we've talked about this at the last convention even, I think the view we need to take, Jim, is that we can move and work with anybody. Now, we're not going to agree 100% of the time, but it's looking for areas that we can support. So, for instance, if there's a Democratic politician that says, I'm pro-choice because I want to support women's health care, and Planned Parenthood operates, I think it's something like, they claim it's 80% of neighborhood clinics where low-income women can receive medical care. It's up to us to point out that, there's a lot of clinics that do the exact same thing in these areas. They just don't provide abortion coverage. And if we can agree that we can provide 90% of the procedures and just not that one, I think that's a way to move it forward. Another is, work with them on after quality of life issues after birth. That's something that Democrats and Republicans can seemingly get behind. Let's make sure we do that. A great example is family medical leave and child care, funding for child care. Both of these are critically important and would help more young adults choose life. It would certainly make it a lot fairer system. So I'll leave it at that. I know that we only have limited time for questions.
Brian O'Neill.
Thank you.
Yes,
Gentlemen, I'm sorry, Brian. When you speak, and I forgot this from last night, my instructions from our crew. When you speak, please tell your name and where you're from. If you're an officer, you can say your office. Just since we can't see everybody, so we know exactly who's speaking for the record. So go ahead, Brian.
thank you, Danny. Thank you, JP, for all your wonderful work. This is Brian O'Neill, Vice President of the Connecticut Council. I wanted to mention that we've been quite successful here in Connecticut, having solidarity with the Knights of Columbus, and many of our brother Hibernians are also Knights, and of course they're passionate about life as we are, and I think that's a great opportunity for us to work with the Knights in one mission towards a faith-based opportunity. So thank you, JP, and I appreciate all the work you've done in the past.
Thank you.
Any other questions, gentlemen? You raise your hand, Joe Hosey.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, worthy Vice President. I'd like to commend John
Who are
Patrick.
you and where are you
for the job
from?
he's doing. And I have a suggestion for the divisions. What I do on Mother's Day, I get a nice Christmas card with our Blessed Mother with the infant Jesus on it, and I send it into the local newspaper. And I just wish all the mothers a happy Mother's Day from the Ancient Order of Hibernians and my local chapter. And that gets a lot of press. It's moving people. And one more thing on what you and Brother Green were talking about. Whenever I get around a politician and I ask him what his views are, and if I get a but, I'm pro-life, but there's no gray in it. It's either black and it's either white. Nice job again, John. Appreciate it. Thank you, worthy Vice President.
Joe. And Joe Hosey is a former state president of Pennsylvania and from my family's hometown of Carbondale, Pennsylvania. So I just wanted to say a quick thing there. The Carbondale division is very lucky to have a great club, the Trinity Club, that is only about a block away from St. Rose of Lima Church, where they're based out. And one of the things you can do, in addition to the prayer cards that Joe was talking about, some divisions have the ability to throw a pancake breakfast. And maybe that day the admission that you have is a box of diapers or a donation to a local crisis pregnancy center. There's plenty of things that you can do with the resources that you have. And to Joe, to your comment about the politicians, one of the things I've tried to do as chairman is we're not going to agree with everyone, and there are going to be a lot of people with the butts. What I would always recommend to folks is always view every interaction as an opportunity for conversion. I always like to say in my articles, take another step with me. And that's all it is, brothers, is if you're not going to agree with them and you know that you're getting to that point in the conversation, just put in a quick ask. Congressman, representative, could you take another step with me? Could you try to support this, this center or this proposal that I have? Would you consider it? And if you leave it at that, you don't close a door on someone. Too many times I've seen people come to Washington, D.C., and when they lobby me or some of my my bosses, it's always do what I want or I'm out. Well, brothers, that's an ultimatum, and I don't think any of us ever respond well to those.
This is John O'Brien. John, go ahead.
Yes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, worthy Vice President J.P., you're doing a great job here. I just wanted to remind everybody, we have to spread the message further than just our church, our Knights of Columbus, and perhaps local politicians. There are great ways to do that. It's like constant contact, but you put in your zip code and it connects you with your three most powerful senators, assembly people, whatever. And I send that out regularly. Hopefully, people do put in their zip code and send their own opinion. You're sending it as a person where you live and a constituent of that politician. You're not sending it out as a Hibernian. So this is a great help, too, because they're supposed to be listening to who votes for them. Often when I do my lobby trip, they're not always cognizant of where I'm from. I'd also like to mention that everything we've been doing is definitely going in the right direction here. I personally, here in Nassau County, there was another Planned Parenthood that just closed, but it's not forcing them into our beliefs. It's actually just having more and more people realize the value of life. Every life is valuable, black, any color. So it's just keeping that around. And as Patrick brought out, every opportunity you get is a pro-life moment, especially right now in Albany. As you mentioned, we're working on the assisted suicide. And there's a lot of things on, we don't want to call it doctor-assisted suicide, or now it's prescribed suicide, so that we know that somebody is actually prescribing it for you. You're not doing it yourself. But I want to thank everybody who's been out there doing it. The March for Life in Washington's been going great. I know I never make it there on time for the breakfast, but thank you for all your efforts, all the brothers out there. Always. Another thing I forgot to mention, if your parish doesn't have a Respect Life group or a pro-life group, try and start one or get involved with the one that was there that has now faded away. As we age, and I myself here in New York, there's a lot of people, 3 or 4 people were lost to COVID because we all get old. And I'm having trouble replacing them right now for my event in October. I guess that's about it. The pregnancy centers, if you can volunteer at a pregnancy center, that's always a big deal. And that's where you'll learn your craft on how to speak to people. It's not just an abortion clinic praying, but helping people after the fact. Even if it's an outreach center with a food pantry and stuff, you'll find how you can help other people, and it becomes second nature once you start it. I thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Danny, and I hope the rest of the convention is just as good.
Oh, thank
We're
you, John.
running up against our next event, but we are going to take one more question. Larry Squires, who you just mentioned. Larry, you have the floor.
JP, I just wanted to thank you for such a great term, and I learned an awful lot from you. I just wanted to say that your idea about the prayer cards for Father's Day and Mother's Day, I think is fantastic. and a great way to get some notice out there about what the AOH does with pro-life. Thank you for
Larry.
that suggestion, and I'm going to try to get that going in PA. Thank you.
Well, I just want to thank you and John. Both of you have been incredible examples to me as the national chairman. Every time I think I have a tough go of it here in Washington, D.C., I think about what you guys are doing in Harrisburg and Albany, and I begin to realize that my lift isn't nearly as tough as some of you all who probably view this as a very thankless and sometimes futile effort. And it's not, brothers. We just got to keep the faith, and even if you make an inch of ground, remember that that's 1 inch closer to the goal.
Thank you, JP. Nice job.